It's been 3 weeks since you died, and I don't see you at all, Brink. So I guess you don't get to tell me what to do. I'm Eddie Webb,
I'm a giant floating eyeball.
and today we're going to talk about Brink Part 3 here on Speechless. You still love laser beam sound?
I do. Every time it makes me smile.
Awesome. Well, Zach, welcome to Part 3 of Brink. Again, slightly awkward because we're kind of picking arbitrary points to stop this. Turns out I was actually in the middle of an issue, but it was a cliffhanger last time, so I kind of wanted to stop there. I did want to remark though that to give you a bit more context of how Brink is viewed in the 2000 AD canon, as it were, right? About a year or two ago, 2000 AD ended up doing a licensing deal with Penguin Audio. So they do audiobooks of iconic 2000 AD storylines, right? And so they did one for Judge Dredd America. They did one for Judge Dredd the Pit. And all of the audiobooks they also did one for the first 4 books of Brink, I should say. But all the other books were stories that were published in the 2000s. Brink is the only thing they did an audiobook of that has been published in the last 10 years.
Wow.
So it shows you kind of how Brink is viewed by 2000 AD itself, right? This is kind of their newest flagship title in a lot of ways.
Very cool. I do like a good cliffhanger though. So regardless of middle issue or not, that was like the best place to drop off.
It was. I looked at that. I was like, yeah, no, we should stop there. And there's another one where it's like, I was a page off. I think so there's no cliffhanger coming up. And then, to be fair, that's one thing that I do like about Abnett is that this is a slow burn book, right? Like we've talked about this before. Compared to a lot of other 2000 AD serials where you have to get through a lot of stuff in 7 pages. This takes a bit more time, but Abnett does a really good job of there's something happening every 4 pages. Even if it's a slow burn, something's happening every few pages. And so it does make for a surprisingly high number of cliffhangers for something that is by its own admission a slow burn horror story / text procedural.
Because if we were doing Dread right now, we would have had some serious carnage already by this point, and we would have been deep into the lore.
Right. And whereas this one's taking its time to build things up. But, again, from a context perspective, we are 37 pages in, and we've already hit a major crisis point for Brink that we're about to dive into. So, it's odd because this thing is 100 pages long, and easily 10 of those pages are things like the introduction and variant covers and indentia and stuff like that. So it's maybe 85-ish pages of story, but it feels like it's a much bigger book in a lot of ways.
It does, and you said there were 6 volumes. Is that how many there were?
I believe so. Yes, I believe book 7 is about to start, and
each one's about 100 pages.
Yeah, roughly. Book 5 was a bit longer. Minor spoiler in the sense that it follows neither Brink nor Bridgman. It follows a new character who is basically telling a side story along the events of the previous 4 books, but it's a bit longer. I think it's closer to 200 pages. It was, I remember when I was reading it, I was the first one I started reading week to week, and it was 5 or 6 months of weekly issues, so it was quite a while.
That's a good ploy though. A brand new character, so you can tell a whole bunch of new stories that relate to your other ones while you're figuring out what your character or characters are going to do with the main storyline.
Yeah.
It's I like that.
It's definitely both artist and writer who have had a decent amount of experience, so they're able to play with the format, but also specifically they're both very comfortable with 2080 specific modern style of these things have to have weekly momentum, but also will be eventually compiled into a 100 to 200 page paperback, um, and the way that the way that these stories work well, both as weekly installments and as big omnibuses, are fantastic. But again, not all of them do this well. I mean, I mentioned this, I think, in the first episode, that not all of the compiled editions work well as big books. Not all of the storylines work well as weekly editions. But this one is one that I feel like really works well as both. Particularly this, even though I didn't read this weekly in the beginning, it's something that you can just kind of see. Like I said, there's so many different stopping points and cliffhangers that drag you to the next page, but also you could see where that would be like the turning next week kind of moments. So you can see even what you can see both sides of it, and it's really, really fun.
Awesome.
All right, well, if nothing else, I'll dive into this next one, because we did end on a giant eyeball in space, which is the name of my prog wave cover band. But we do see Brinkman stares at the giant eyeball. There's nobody else around. There was a space station that disappeared, as far as he knows, and he freaks out. He's like, he just kind of goes shut down. No, 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 no! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Basically, he believes he's seeing the giant space god that everyone's been talking about, and Bridge starts calling for him, and we cut back, and we're back into the space station. And Brink's like, where'd you go? And Bridge is like, I was like 1 second behind you. He's like, no, it's been hours. I've been here for hours with this giant eyeball.
So that is probably the most mythos thing we've seen in the entire thing so far. Not the cultists, not the rest of it. Like that moment right there, and you see like the break of a character almost completely.
Right. And so way back when we first started this, I said that the core mystery hasn't been really touched much in 6 books. I was slightly disingenuous in the sense of, is this giant eyeball thing true? That has not been answered, right? But that's why you mentioned mythos. That's why it got me thinking, because it is very I don't want to use Lovecraftian, because fuck Lovecraft. So I would say mythos vibed, in the sense of you never know where reality ends and people's natural foibles begin. And that's what makes, for me, Brink so compelling. Because at this point, as a reminder,
it could be the drugs.
Brink is still on, huh?
It could be the drugs that he's on, and it's nothing else.
Exactly.
So that's
right.
That's one of the reasons it has that mythos thing, because there's like a dreamlike quality associated with it.
Yes, exactly. That's actually what I was going to say, because Brink is still on quite a lot of drugs, and Bridge is clean and does not see it when she walks in. But they are both looking at the spray paint image that looks kind of like an eye, which is the circle with the 2 kind of curves above and below it, and then the Vovek the leopard heart graffiti. And so she asks Brink if he's been stabbed by a needle, asks if there's an exit, and Brink is just, again, it's like, I don't know what I saw, I don't know what's going on. And Bridge reminds him, again, very nicely recapping in case this is weekly, it's like, we marched onto Union turf. The guy that you chased and lost is getting back up. Do we have cause to be here, or do we back off? And Brink refuses to answer. And so they find the guy they were chasing, and he's freaking out because he's worried that she will draw the attention of it, which we might assume is the same eye that Brink is seeing, or he's seeing his own different hallucination. It's very intentionally unclear. But he says it's Melancolema might see me. So he's talking about the space god, and Brink has seen a giant eyeball. So, I mean, it's a coincidence at best, right?
Well, if we wanted to be like really analytical, we could say that it was a matter of the drugs that Brink was on, and the fact that he's become obsessed with this case. And you hear this one person ranting the same thing over and over, because Brink also has the insight from, I forgot his name now, but the person that was undercover. So there's no telling what additional information is like seething around in Brink's drug at old Brink.
Right. Um, and also, he did look at a graffiti image of an eyeball and then saw a giant eyeball. So it's with all that in your head and you're on drugs, one of which was marked as a hallucinogen. Um, it's not that far of a stretch to go. He's seeing the things that the cultists are telling him, which is actually one of the arguments that were made way back when they came to the station. Was is this, they're telling each other the same things and they're all on drugs, so is this just, it's not really actually a religion, it's just like kind of a consensual hallucination, right? They've all talked themselves into this commonality.
Or would it be that it goes back to like an old thing, how all humans have low level psychic abilities to some extent, and Brink is now on their wavelength and he's picking up whatever their psychic hallucination is.
Right, which goes back to everyone is on not only drugs, but a specific drug, nudge. Yes. And of course, this is great cult patter, because she's like, Bridge asks the guy what's his name. He goes, it ate my name. And she's like, Jesus. She is so done with this cult Cthulhu bullshit, right?
Ah, like, oh, I love it so much. It's I'm gonna start envisioning it as Delta Green in space.
Yeah, it's not that far off, honestly.
Well, there's a specific reason why in a page or two, why I think that's gonna really become like my thing for agents and their life expectancy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, so Bridge asks again, "Did you call for backup?" And Brink finally says, "What? No, of course I didn't." And so she's furious, like, "God damn it!" And so she's like, "Everyone disperse, let us through." And the union people are like, "You have no rights here. This is a code violation." And so we have an interesting conflict here because everyone involved in this conversation knows they aren't supposed to be there, right? Brink knew he didn't have the backup because he didn't call for backup. Bridge, multiple times in the past few pages, have been like, "We don't have cause." But Bridge is trying to back her partner's play. And Brink is opted out of the conversation. So she's now just left holding the bag that Brink filled. Um, and so, they take the guy back for interview. They start trading, insults, and specifically, they mentioned a couple times the union's going to sue security services, which is relevant. And she even mentions like, we're gonna face review for this. This is gonna blow up. And so they call for backup. And so
I
she,
wanna I wanna
oh,
talk
good.
about how much I love the panel flow here, like from them coming at the door, moving out their the person they've arrested, to like the three asking them, telling them it's a security violation, and as you're slowly watching them try to progress through, and you get a sense that she's starting to get a sense of safety, which is even why she holsters her weapon around all of them. Like that is a great bit of storytelling.
Yeah, and there's a great. That's a really good point. Like, because there's a bunch of union people and they're all dressed in similar orange and white uniforms or orange and off white uniforms. Um, And so they're kind of milling around as the scene cuts around with this. And so on the very last panel, there's another guy walking into the scene. You don't think about it at first, and it's at the end of a page. So when you flip the page, that man starts walking into frame holding a pipe and starts holding it back like a bat. Bridges' back is turned to the scene. He's walking up behind Brink and just clobbers him with this piece of metal as Brink's trying to hold on to their suspect. And then, like I said, there's very few sound effects, but when they come in, they're important. So we have wunch, thunk, and then schmirk across three different panels because this guy hits Brink 3 times in the head,
And
and
the
all
splash
before
of
Bridge can
red
grab a gun. Hmm.
and like the splash of red they have for each hit is staggering because he doesn't only kill Brink, he also kills the person they're taking for questioning.
Hmm. Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I missed that part. Yeah, yeah. And because they're in a slightly darker area. There's lots of shadows, and all of the colors have been muted. And of course, all the Union guys have dark on it. So, like, except for the bit of neon in the background, the red is the only bright color on these panels. So again, it really pops. It really stands out. And this all happens in a time it takes from Bridge to notice it, turn around, and start to grab her guns. This is lightning fast.
And so, do you think the first time Brink was almost hit with a huge metal pipe was a portent for this moment where he's killed with a large metal pipe?
I think so. I think so. I think it was. Uh, I think it was a kind of a reference, and also, if you remember, part of the reason why he didn't get hit was because both of them were reacting so fast because they were both on drugs. And Brink said before this, "I need you, any Bridge. I need you to be on your game." And she's like, "Well, the drugs are making me loopy." But like, arguably, the drugs slowed her down. Not having the drugs resistance slowed her down a bit here.
So he was saved because of luck, though, because if you remember right, he was cuffing the guy on the ground and the pipe hit the metal railing above his
Oh,
head.
right. Sorry, I was thinking of a different scene. You're right. But still, I mean, like, it happens so fast because everybody else is on nudge and she's moving much slower. How much of that is because she wasn't on drugs? Could she have saved either of them?
Yeah.
Um, so she does eventually pull her weapon, shoots 3 times. We get a bam, bam, bam. And again, like 3 different little splashes of it. But this is all in one panel as opposed to before they were in separate panels. This is in one panel. And so there's this weird thing about comic pacing that I love if it's done well, which is that the slower the more panels used to tell us a moment or a scene can read as fast, whereas doing it all in one panel can read as slow. Flash comics, modern Flash comics, particularly do this really, really well, right? Where the Flash is zooming around doing stuff, and it's been like a lot of panels showing all the stuff Flash doing, and then you see between those panels, not much has changed. That helps to really read it as very fast. Whereas her gun and shooting this guy 3 times is all done in one panel, and that's top third of a page even. And so it's also fast, but it's kind of compressed, and it feels like it's quote unquote normal time, whereas the previous page was a little bit faster.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting.
But then she, as soon as she finishes that, she immediately starts getting the shake. She calls for backup officer down, and she tries to get Brink to get up. As we look and see 3 different people lying in pools of blood.
And they're surrounded now. She's surrounded by all the union workers too.
Right. So that whole scene was a lot of witnesses. And so we cut back to Ludmilla Habitat, and she is now back with Habitat Security talking to Curtis. And we see that there's a badge and some vials of blood and a gun in an evidence bag, and they're talking about putting the case to review, which was something that she mentioned would happen probably before. And we find out that yes, Brink is dead. So one of your suppositions came true. Brink is dead. Halfway through the
For
first
right
book.
now. For right now, he's dead.
Right. We will get there. And so Curtis is basically like, has the whole case is a review, you're under review, and Bridge is like, nope, I get it. She knows that this was not the best way to handle this, right? This was a problem. She wants to still see the case out, and he's like, no, you don't understand. You're suspended. That's not how this works. You don't get to follow the case. And she's like, okay, yeah, but don't let me run through materials. She's like, maybe, but he's basically trying very politely to say you fucked up. But he's not. He's trying to do it in a very professional manner. It's like everything's to be bagged up, everything's to be reviewed. We need you to process everything. We've already gathered Brinkman's effects. And so she's like, listen, I don't think we had cause. And he's like, shut up. Just shut the fuck up right now. Don't tell me this. Get your head together. Call a lawyer. Talk to legal. Then we can have a formal conversation. He's really trying to help her out here.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to know, though, like if this had happened on their hub station, what their chief would have done versus chief that's not their chief.
Right, right, exactly. Because if you recall, we only saw her for like a couple pages, but like their initial chief was very much like, "This isn't my problem. We have more important shit to do." Whereas this habitat, they had a history of sect or cult activity, and so this is not uncommon. But also, Brink was warned at every step how to handle this, and he failed to do so. And so he does want a good result because he did believe in the case, right? And he thought that they were good to be investigating this, but just handled the absolute worst way. So we go back to Bridge sleeping in her habitat. Um, and we see a bag of macrobio to show that she's still eating clean and presumably off drugs. And then she starts to see images of the bodies in the graffiti on the wall. So it's bothering her. And then we finally get close up of the tracelet. You were talking before about how we were seeing little
Love
pieces about
it.
how this interface works, and it actually does. We see very clearly projects onto the back of her hands, and we see that she's missed 8 calls from her legal counsel, um, 4 calls from Vittoria, who was her original superior, and then 5 other calls from 2 different people on the review.
I love that tracelet. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do. Oh, it makes me squeal.
It's a super cool interface, right? I actually I do too. I dig it. It's because I can shoot it to like boards, interface with stuff, but also projecting the back of the hand is such a neat idea because it's a way to have that kind of cyberpunk feel of the body interface technology without actually having to be invasive technology.
So that goes back to like one of my big things because I've never there's something about like for like a cyberpunk thing where they're removing lots of parts of the people to just add into cyberware without a reason has always bothered me. So I
Hmm.
like the idea of the technology that's here and how it does that without doing the other piece of it. Because then it would it's a whole me thing. It goes back to my thing about cyborg, in my opinion, is about how they did cyborg.
No, absolutely. Like, and someone with disability. Like, I also sometimes struggle with the, um, I would replace this with a machine because it make my life better. And it's just like, as someone who loses these devices, that's just not how this works, right? Um, and as we talk to people like you who have replacement legs or limbs or whatever, they may have a handful of improvements and a lot of benefits compared to not having it, but it's still not the same as being abled. Um, and for me, like the thing goes back with Brink specifically is that all this technology feels lived in. That's the other kind of side of cyberpunk that a lot of people tend to forget when they're emulating the genre, think about the genre, is that the reason why Blade Runner was so evocative was because it felt like a real city, you know?
Yeah.
One of the things that we liked about one of the few things we liked about the Stallone Judge Dredd movie was that the city felt like it was lived in. It felt like it was a real place. And so Brink does feel like even though it's a bunch of space stations in space from a dead Earth, all the technology feels like a place that people actually live in and things that people actually use.
It's also one of the reasons I liked old school Star Wars better than Star Trek. Because
Yeah,
Star Trek, everything felt too new, too clean, too shiny, and like it's never used. Versus
I
Star
totally agree.
Wars, where like you're constantly repairing something to make sure that it keeps functioning, which feels more like real life.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, certainly. Like your cobbled together spaceship, or your bar where things are barely working. Yeah, no, I agree. There's a very kind of it's not low tech. It's anything but low tech, but it feels low tech, even though it's not. So Bridge goes to Escalade District 34, the Boiler House District, and she ends up going to the Affiliated Ducting and Ventilation Maintenance Union. This is the same place where she and Bridge were at because there's actually a little crime scene floaty hologram thing with bloodstains.
I love it so much. Oh, I love it so much. Like it's totally stupid, but I
Yes.
love everything about it.
I I don't know what it is, but like I deeply love hologrammatic police tape. It's such a stupid sci-fi thing. You're right, but like, every time I see it, it's like yes, this is a sci-fi thing. And it's such a stupid trope, but the fact that they just again, like, the team is not afraid of mining tropes if it makes sense for the story. In this case, like going, of course, they're police. They're going to have holographic police tape. That's just a thing to do. And again, but like to your point, this is something that actual tape can't do. Right? This was an open space, so you can't tape off an open space, whereas a floating hologram can delineate a space. So it's like, yes, it's a silly trope, but also has an actual technological use. Didn't know we expected to spend talking about hologrammatic police tape, but here we are. Anyway.
Well, if you want, we could do a total sub tangent from this and go into Red Dwarf and talk about Rimmer and his holographic body that then becomes a hard light body.
Right, because of the light bee and
yeah. We're gonna have to cover Red Dwarf. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, totally. At least the good ones, anyway.
It's a different conversation. Okay, you were saying.
So she meets up with a builder, which was Brink's undercover contact, and they're meeting at a restaurant that very clearly has a Japanese kanji on a window, which again quietly tells you something else, which is that this is a polylinguistic society. Even though everyone's speaking English, there's writing in different languages here.
Which is something that's been reoccurring throughout the pages we've read, because some of the signs would like switch from English to so-and-so to so-and-so.
Right, exactly. And so Builder points out that he got pulled out of the undercover job, so that's 9 months of work down the drain. Review, he mentions that Review knows about his talk with Brinkman because Curtis reported it. And he's like, well, of course you mentioned it in your statement. She's like, I haven't written my statement yet. And it's like, yeah, and she's like, I need to talk to legal first. And he's like, yeah, you really need to do that. Which says something about Bridge that we're learning, right? Like, Brink was someone who just kind of flew off the handle, right? He was very much a seat of his pants, go by your gut kind of thing. But also, he wasn't subtle. Nothing about Brink was subtle. Even when he tried to be any kind of conversationalist, if he tried to be political, tried to be persuasive, it never quite worked. And usually he's just kind of an asshole and just said what was on his mind. But we see that Bridge is manipulative because we know she's dodging legal, but yet she's telling another cop, oh yeah, I need to talk to legal first. He's like, yeah, you should do that, right? Because that's the thing that her superior here at this Habitat told her to do. So she's just now parroting the things she expects other security personnel would want to hear in this moment.
So I'm mostly in agreement with you, but at the same time, it goes back to like my other comment. Like, this dude has been undercover for so long. There's a matter of trust that you would have. Like, much like if you go back and you watch Training Day with Denzel and Ethan Hawke. If you've been undercover a long time, man, you're a little too sketchy.
Sure, but to get to the next page, I'm going to jump ahead before I go back a little bit. But part of the reason why she's contacting Builder, she wants a gun. She wants a gun that's off the books. And so she does trust this guy enough to ask for an off the books gun.
You realize what you've said, right? He's a cop, and he's getting her an off the books gun. Sketchy.
Right, exactly. My point is she's manipulating this guy to get what she wants. And so she's telling him, yeah, I'm talking illegal, but I need you to get me this gun. Knowing that he could go back and report the fact that she asked him for a gun in his statement because he's back in the office now. But she's playing that he doesn't want to reveal everything he knows either. So that's my point, is that she is manipulating this guy. Granted, it's not a hard manipulation. She probably believes most of what she's saying, but she is also saying the things she's expected to say, not necessarily where she's actually thinking right now.
I think we're saying the same thing, but from different points. So I'll let that one go. But so I've given a lot of compliments for the art and how it's changed, and how I've sort of grown to really enjoy it. The underlighting here in this scene, though, really puts me off.
Okay. I'm curious why, because it's similar to underlighting we had in the uh, chief's office back in the earlier section.
I'm not sure. There's something about it that just doesn't quite sit right with like my visual eye. But I admit from the jump though, I am not an artist. I am most assuredly a writer that needs an editor.
Fair enough.
So me talking
I
about art is like a 4-year-old painting a Picasso.
So I think part of it might be a color choice because something we haven't talked about a lot of is that Builder is male presenting, but clearly wears lipstick and eyeshadow. And specifically, they wear blue eyeshadow, and the underlighting is blue. So the blue eyeshadow and the blue underlighting are the same tone. So it might be a case of like it looks like it's underlighting underneath his eyebrows, which is disorienting because light shouldn't go that high up. So that might
Maybe that's
be
it.
part of it. I did notice that myself. But similarly, one thing I did like is the underlighting, because Builder's a bit older. The underlighting also hits like under the cheeks, where you can see some of the wrinkles and lines on their face,
Yeah.
and also just clearly has very sharp cheekbones. But like the underlighting ages the face a bit more. And shows you just how much stress has been on Builder as maybe part of the assignment, or just how long they've been doing similar jobs. But to go back to my original point, uh, Builder starts asking about the case and was like, did you have cause? And she says, it was Brink's call. And he's like, did he have cause? And she doesn't answer that question. So she's being very selective with information she does give to Builder. So to your point, like, yes, she doesn't trust him. But he points out that the union is suing Habsec. He's not sure why yet, for a code violation at least. And she's like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, you need to understand how deep this shit is, and talks about how the unions have a lot of pull in this habitat. And she points out the perp was killing Brink and the suspect. It was justified shooting. And he's like, yes, but it was unprovoked. It was provoked by an unauthorized inspect. And she's like, did you reach out to me just to piss me off? Which tells us something we didn't know going into the scene, which is that he contacted her.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't contact him. So he's also trying to keep us under the table. So again, like, yes, he's being suspicious, but she's trying to take advantage of the situation. Again,
Sketchy.
I think we're agreeing to disagree on this point. Basically, and so he's like, I contacted you to tell you that something has woken up. A lot of the cult activity prior to this was small scale. He's been working for 6 years, and like most of the cults are like maybe 30 members. This is something that's potentially in the thousands. So he thinks this might be the organization that all the cults stem from. This is kind of the organizing group, the source.
The old ones, you'd say.
Right. Yeah. The old gods, if you will. So we go back to Bridges' habitat. She's again still eating macrobio, sorry. And she starts talking to herself. And it was actually tempting to quote this entire speech, but it was just so long. But basically, she talks about how she knew a guy. She's talking to Brink. We find out in a minute. Initially, it's not unclear, but we find out she's talking to Brink. And how she knew a guy who lost his partner and started seeing him everywhere. And she's like, I kind of expected to start seeing you, but I don't. And I'm glad because, and she starts to list all of the things she's doing wrong intentionally. She's like, you would tell me to stop dodging my appointments to review and legal. You would tell me get my statements straight. You would tell me to blame all this on my dead partner. You would tell me to report the gun. You would tell me to avoid Builder because he's obviously fucking crazy. You would tell me that if I and she points something interesting out, which is that, and this just tells me that because I can't see you, that it's proof that there's no goddamn space gods. Because if I could, that would actually maybe prove what else going on, but I can't. So it's probably just drugs, which is interesting. She's like, there's no farms in my system. If I'm seeing you, prove it's real. But it's been 3 weeks and I don't see you at all. So again, the whole comic is like really trying to thread this line, right? Because her argument is, because I'm not on drugs, because I'm eating clean, I'm not seeing you, therefore it's a hallucination. But also, we as the reader know that Brink and Builder were talking together, and that yes, Brink was on drugs, but also he saw the eye. He was spouting a lot of the names right before the incident happens. So, like, it's not quite as clear if you accept that there may be a supernatural or alien reasoning going on. If you don't, if you take this just as a straightforward, yes, in space, but otherwise there's no supernatural or weird stuff going on, Bridge is right. If we accept that there is weird supernatural alien stuff going on, Bridge is wrong, which is fascinating because the comic refuses to accept which one is true right now.
So if it is a drug, so there's no reason the drugs can't be alien or supernatural, since they're coming from whatever corporation is mass producing them.
Right. And one thing that's this is why I want to go back. Why we spent a weird amount of time talking about vomiting early episodes is because everyone was felt sick when they heard a specific name. When Bridge was off drugs and when Bridge was eating clean, she still had a sick feeling when she heard the name right before everything went down with the Union. And she's not thinking about that piece. But we as the reader repeatedly saw this happen. So we know something unusual is going on. We don't know exactly what it is. We know something unusual. So we know the Bridge is actually in the wrong here, but it's really hard to, especially the first time reading it, it's really hard to here's where she's wrong in her reasoning, because it sounds very logical. And most of it is accurate. But there is a piece she's missing. And it's a piece she has access to, she's just not acknowledging right now.
Well, we also don't know how long it takes to get these futuristic super drugs out of your system, though.
True, but her argument is, I'm clean. And it has been several weeks, right? But you're right. But yeah, at that time, it was only a few days that she was clean.
And Eddie, if it's an alien supernatural drug, there's no telling. It could take years. Maybe it never leaves your system. Maybe it's just sitting there waiting.
Right. Again, all of these things can be true, which is one of the great things about Brink is it's not pointing you in a specific direction, and any of your theory, you can feel lots of theories to click into place, and there's a lot of stuff there that makes sense to click in.
Love it. Love it.
So she gets approached by Bonner from Review, who basically tells her, hey, you really need to talk to me. If you don't, we're going to have to summon you. You do not want us to do that because it's not going to go well for you. Let's get this all squared away. Again, very much trying to help her out with a little bit of threat, And she deletes it. She's like, nope, not engaging with that. She's going to find out what happened to her partner. She's going to get to the bottom of this.
So, are you saying that she's hooded justice?
Yeah, I should mention, yes, she is dressed in plain clothes and she's wearing a hoodie, and her hood is over her head. So yes, she is very much that. So she meets with Builder again, the person that she's not supposed to be meeting with. And again, minor thing. When last time I talked to Builder, she's like, hey, riots are starting up all over the habitat because of what you did. And then here she goes across the city to meet with him and them. And it's like, you're late. And she's like, yeah, riots. I got held up. So just kind of a casual thing of like, yep, there are riots. So something that was a big concerning thing has now automatically been normalized, which says a whole lot in 2026, right?
Well, also though, there's a time jump now that is implied by her saying that 3-week period's gone by. So we could assume that 3-week happened after she talked to Builder, and they've gotten used to dealing with the riots over that 3-week period. Right. Which would also then show you how intense those riots are if they're still going on 3 weeks later.
Yep. And so he starts talking about that's because the riots are because they're protecting the Fever, which is their giant primordial demon space god. And she's like, listen, I'm not here to talk about this. What do you got? And so he mentions that he has a lead named Hina Menz. She is someone who was busted for sex crime 2 years ago. She put pamphlets around. And she was part of a coven, and Brink interrupts, like, there's a coven now? It's like, whatever, just go with me. And she got too vocal, and she was booted out of the cult she was a part of. And so it's like, because she was so kicked out so summarily, she may be interested in talking. She's out of the circle, but she's a believer, and she's heavy history of farm use, so she might be unstable. And he's like, she's like, you coming? He's like, hell no. I'm not an active part of this investigation. She's like, neither am I. It's like, yeah, it's because I want to keep my job. So Builder has a line, apparently, that they will not cross, which is interesting.
Well, it would have been funny if they had joined up. Then you would have gone from like Bridge and Brink to Bridge and Builder.
Yeah. There was definitely a running joke of B names that sounds like architecture.
Yeah.
So she goes to Menz's suite. It is a mess. She pulls aside a curtain and sees that she has been killed. And painted over top of her corpse, which has been propped up against the window, we see again the blue eye graffiti and Leperhart's "Seize Your Disloyalty" written above it. And all around the room, there are different eyes painted across.
Do you know how exceptional of a spray painter you have to be to have such neat circles that they have, Eddie? You can tell that it's spray painted because her body, when her head tilted from being dead, it showed a little spot where you can see into space from where it is. That's spray paint. That's not someone with a paintbrush doing that. Exceptional spray paint skill.
Yeah, and also, like, if you look around the edges of the circle, there are little drips that are common with spray paint. So yeah, no, I mean, there's a uncanny precision to it. You're absolutely right. And then I'm glad you noticed that, because I love that part. It is the spray paint feels real because of how the body intersects with the paint.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's a decal slapped on by the artist. It feels like someone spray painted that. It's little details are so fantastic in this comic.
So that goes back to like a lot of compliments for the artwork that is unbelievably exceptional almost consistently.
Right. And as she looks at the body, Brink says, "Yep, she's dead." And Bridge just goes, "Oh, so now you show up?" And he's this creepy, gelatinous, red, floating torso thing. Now, to be fair, she doesn't see him. Right? He is behind her, and she's not turning around. And she's like, crap, I have to call this in. And then he disappears. Which, again, she's just like, okay, bye then. Very clearly Bridge uses humor as a coping mechanism at this point. Which is funny because there was the running gag that, remember, Lamilla was, or not Lamilla, Franny was like, oh, he's really funny. And everyone's like, no, he's not. And it turns out it's because Bridge is the funny one. And again, it's this kind of laconic sarcasm in the face of just horrific shit. So even it tells you even more when Brink actually died, when she broke down, how much that actually hit her hard. And so she goes to open the door. And again, lovely pacing. The bottom panel is just a picture of her saying, well, shit. And then the camera angle at the top of the next page switches, and we see her looking out to 5 of the most 80s cyberpunk gangbangers you have ever seen. This is some Dark Knight Rises bullshit.
It's funny that you go Dark Knight Rises, because I went the ending of Weird Science.
Oh, yeah.
When those punks show up at the party.
Right. It is very much that, right? It's they have, weird headgear, lots of red and green lights on their outfits. They're just
one's in a gas mask, 2 in a gas mask, maybe.
Yeah, like every neon punk, neon goth rave you've ever been to, right? But they're all specifically wearing masks. And so she slams the door. And again, small little thing. There's a pad next to the door when it closes, and she starts to draw an L, which disappears. So it shows you that's how you lock the door. Is that you draw a little L symbol on the pad. It's one panel, but tells you
Love
so
it.
much about the technology.
But then that has me thinking, though, so it's not DNA locked if anyone can lock it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which would then go back, I guess, reinforced because this is potentially a rental apartment that she was in.
Right. Yes. And it's like it may be because Bridge does have. Well, I was going to say Bridge has security clearance, but she doesn't because she's
Nope.
suspended right now. So
Yep.
That's a good point. Yeah. So she's looking around for a place to go, and again, little things like she's looking up at the ceiling, and then we get a little call out that says air circ duct system vent. And then she climbs in, so she doesn't have to say, "Oh, look, an air duct." Right? The little call out does that heavy lifting. That's why I love the little call out system. It's such a good way of communicating to the reader. You don't know what this is, but she does. Not her having to do a thought bubble or anything stupid like that.
So the glow stick, did she
Yes.
find it? Was it on the floor?
Yes. If you look back a few pages, there were a bunch of glow sticks on the floor when she first walked into the room.
Oh, you're right. There they are. Beside the body.
Yes, and by the body too, yes. So she grabbed one off the floor, shoves it in her mouth, and climbs into the air duct. Very much Die Hard style. And then one of the punks shoves their head into the air duct and grabs her foot. But she finds a grate and manages to work her way through and falls into the next room. And again, little touch. You can see as she's falling in that one of her shoes is coming off because she managed to grab her shoe, but she went through the duct, so basically she fell out of the shoe functionally. And so she grabs the gun. She points it at the open air duct, but no one comes out. So we have a nice few panels of nothing happening. And then she slowly walks out. And in this space, she sees yet another piece of eye graffiti. And then as she sees that, a light comes through the air duct, and she's like, whoever you are, stay the hell back. And they talk about Leperheart. Leperheart knows you. Needs you to pay now. The Unreach wants to take you down into itself. And so our hands start grabbing her from the walls, and the punks start coming out of the walls, literally. There's another reference to low theta, and she's like, "I will shoot every single one of you." And they're like, "You don't have the ammo because there's 8 clips, but there are thousands of us. I mean, there's in the panel there's like 5, but they're talking about the whole organization." And she's like, well, it's still 9 of you dead, which is interesting because there's a clip of 8-9 max is he has 9 of you dead, so she's confident she can shoot each one of them dead. And based on what we've seen of her marksmanship so far, she's probably right.
Yeah.
And she's like, me with a head start, and they point out where to. Earth's gone, home's gone. There's nowhere left to run to. So she looks and sees an anti-gravity emitter node, says, I'll find somewhere, shoots it, and they all shoot out into space. And that's where we'll stop.
It's a good cliffhanger.
Yes. So one of your theories is proven correct.
Yeah, I knew it. Can't have a name Brinkman in a book called Brink.
Right. What were your other theories? One was that Bridge is pregnant.
Yes, I'm still standing by that at the moment. Eating clean.
Right.
Although, so my other thought is that we see this micro stuff that supposedly she's eating clean, and someone said they're raising it and everything else. How do we know for certain that it's clean? Like, there's no way to know that.
That's true. I mean, Franny just said it was. I mean, she has the one thing that we know for certain. I mean, not for certain. One thing that is in Bridge's control is she stopped taking Nudge, so she does not have Nudge in her system. But you're right. For all we know, Nudge could be in macrobio because she's only eating specifically, and it's not just. If you remember, Franny was talking about how you can grow your own. That's not what Bridge is doing. She's eating stuff out of macrobio bags.
Yeah. So there's no telling what that really could be. I would assume that it's not Nudge because she would know the effects of Nudge on her system, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have some of the stuff that is in Nudge still.
Right, right. The active component that's maybe causing some of these problems.
So, mm.
Um,
now I'm
so,
torn because I'm part of me wants to say that Bridge is going to come back, but that's more of the mythos writer in me that wants to make it a little bit more horror.
right,
But from having talked with you, I don't think that we're going to get Bridge back. From what you said, if they're still trying to play so close to the line, at best you might have like minor breaks where she potentially sees our hero's break or Brink to help her quote. Can else Sigourney Weaver save the cat and aliens to help her cope?
right, right. Um, I mean, at the ends, maybe I could talk about things like how much you want spoiled. I won't do that right
I
now,
don't want any of
obviously.
it spoiled because I'm
There you go.
enjoying it enough that I may actually want to go and read the
Okay,
books myself.
okay,
Or we
all
may
right.
make an entire speechless run if we just cover these because I'll keep nudging you until we do it.
Fair enough. I mean, hey, it's been a while since we talked about Brink. We talk about Brink some more. Yeah. So I mean, what I will say is that you're right. Like they keep playing with that line a lot. Uh, uh, I suppose it's a minor spoiler, but not really. Is like at no point does the story thus far go into, yep, it's totally a Cthulhu monster, and this is what they do. Right? It's not that kind of story. It's a psychological horror in a lot of ways. But uh, there's a lot of, again, like having Brink die and then kind of show up, but not in a way that Bridge actually sees. That the reason why I spent a lot of time talking about how Bridge has a lot of valid points, but it's something she's missing. That's something that we saw through this, is that how much of this is Bridge actually trying to logically think through it, how much of it is her trying to talk herself out of things that she knows, right? Which again is very Cthulhu mythos. Um, One way to preserve your stability or sanity, depending on which version you prefer, um, is to sometimes just pretend like the things you know are true aren't true.
Yep. Although I won't lie that if it got to the X-Files point of Scully denying everything and constantly being asleep when something bad happened, I would be done. There's an alien ship. Oh, you're unconscious.
Right, right,
Uh, there's a weird pig monster. Oh, you're unconscious.
right. No, I will at least say it never gets that bad. It's much better than that. But it's interesting you mentioned Delta Green, because you're right. Like I hadn't thought about it when I first talked about it, but you're right in the sense of these are people working for a larger organization, and they can die extremely quickly. And in this case, not even from a horrible monster, right? It's just a person with a hunk of metal.
Yeah.
It's the most low tech thing that in most other action adventure stories would have been like, I knock on the head and you wake up next scene, right? No, he's dead. 3 people are dead after that scene, and it was basically 3 shots fired and 3 swings of a metal plat. It's brutal.
Because the other big piece of it is since they're effectively federal agents we've already established of some kind. Is how I'm viewing them. And
Mhm,
Delta Green, you're primarily playing an agent with a specialized skill set and all this other stuff. And
mhm,
the beats mirror kind of how a potential Delta Green scenario would go. Because
mhm.
I know that even there's one where you're investigating there's one where you investigate. I'm trying to like not get spoilers. There's one where
Yeah.
you're investigating a witness and shit goes wrong and 3 or
Ah,
4 of your partners are dead
that
in a
is weird. That is
situation
weirdly
similar to some of that.
that is eerily accurate. Yeah. So I guess there's not that much of a stretch between. I mean, Delta Green hacking it into Brink wouldn't be that hard at all. It sounds like.
No, like I could write that for our dream if they wanted. I think that would be more in my wheelhouse.
Hey, talk to 2000 AD. See if we can get a license, right? Brink role playing game.
Oh, we need to cut that out so I can do that.
So next time we will read the rest. We'll read all the way to the end. So that should be about the same amount of pages. Chris, if people want to talk to you about how to hack Delta Green into a sci-fi game, where do they talk to you online?
You can come talk to me at darker_hue on Blue Sky. Jump in the Discord. And as a side note, if you're really enjoying Brink and you want us to cover the second volume that I have not read, and if we do it, I'll read it just like now. I'll read up to where we're supposed to be and then stop so I can make wild speculations. Let us know. What
Yeah,
about you?
please. Reach me out at pugsky.com. That's my website. That's also where you find me on Blue Sky. Or happy to talk on the Darker Hue Discord because, yeah, this is probably one of my favorite comics right now. It's one of the main reasons why I have 2000 AD subscription is Brink. So, yeah, I would love to talk more about Brink. So,
I
cool.
will say that I've enjoyed this so much that if we don't hear back from people wanting us to do it, we don't do it. I may buy the other ones and read them and get my own subscription to 2000 AD. That is how much I am enjoying this.
Wow.
It is. I almost wrote something like this, Eddie, so it's totally within like my ability.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want us to do a 2000 AD run, maybe we let us know because I mean something we talked about also is just grabbing some weekly issues and talking about them week to week. I mean that would be a bit more complicated to do, but maybe if you're interested in that, maybe we can do that. So let us know what you think, and otherwise we will see you next time.
Be seen.